Xander Kaine watched the orc woman's shoulders sag as she counted out silver coins at the lender's window, and something in the way her calloused fingers trembled told him this payment cost more than money. The counting house smelled of ink and old leather, its narrow interior crowded with ledgers stacked floor to ceiling. Afternoon light slanted through high windows, illuminating dust motes that drifted like ash. Xander stood third in line, arms crossed, waiting his turn to settle an account for stone he had purchased. The woman ahead had green skin that caught the light with a faint sheen, her dark hair pulled back in a practical braid. She wore a blacksmith's apron over a worn tunic, and soot still marked her knuckles. 24 months paid, the lender said, making a show of consulting his ledger. Marcus Finch was a thin man with ink-stained fingers and a smile that never reached his eyes. Balance remaining, 140 silver. The orc woman nodded, silent. She gathered her empty purse and turned to leave. Xander's jaw tightened, 140 silver remaining after 2 years of payments. He knew the going rate for every loan in this valley. He had borrowed from Finch himself once, years back, to buy his first set of mason's tools. The numbers did not add up. He paid his own account without speaking, left the counting house, and found himself walking the same direction as the woman. She moved with purpose through the dirt streets of Millbrook, past the cooper's shop and the mill itself, its wheel turning steadily in the creek. Xander followed at a distance, telling himself he merely wanted to see where she was headed, that it was none of his business. She turned down a lane he knew well. At the end stood a small forge, its chimney cold, its doors chained shut. The sign above read Eriksen's forge in faded letters. Eriksen. The name struck him like a hammer. Old Tormund Eriksen, the orc who had shod every horse and mended every tool in 3 villages for 20 years. Dead now, 2 winters past. Xander had attended the burial, standing in the back while the man's daughter spoke a few words over the grave. He remembered her voice, steady despite grief, thanking those who had come. This was that daughter. She stood before the forge now, one hand pressed against the weathered door, and Xander saw her shoulders rise and fall with a deep breath before she walked on toward a small cottage beyond. He turned back toward town, his mind working. That night, Xander sat in his room above the stoneworks and did arithmetic by candlelight. Tormund Eriksen had taken a loan 3 years ago to repair his forge after a fire. Xander knew because half the town had known, had watched the old orc rebuild brick by brick. The loan had been for 200 silver at standard terms, payable over 18 months. 18 months. Not 3 years. Not 4. Xander rose before dawn and walked to the magistrate's office, a square stone building he had helped repair the previous summer. The clerk, a young man named Peter, was just unlocking the door. "I need to see loan records," Xander said. "Public filings." Peter blinked at him. "That is unusual." "But legal." "Well, yes." Peter led him inside to a room lined with shelves holding leather-bound volumes. "Which lender?" Marcus Finch. Peter's expression flickered, something like distaste crossing his face before he schooled it neutral. He pulled down 3 volumes and set them on a table. "These are the last 5 years. Finch files quarterly." Xander worked through the books methodically. He found the entry for Tormund Eriksen, 200 silver, issued 3 years prior, terms of 18 months. He found the notation of monthly payments. And there, 20 months back, he found the entry that made his blood run hot, paid in full, signed by Marcus Finch himself. 20 months ago. 4 months before Tormund died, the daughter had been paying a ghost debt for 2 full years. Xander copied the information onto a scrap of paper, thanked Peter, and left. He did not go to his work site that morning. Instead, he went to the small cottage behind the cold forge. The orc woman answered his knock with surprise in her amber eyes. Up close, he could see she was perhaps 35, with fine lines at the corners of her eyes and a scar along her jaw. She was tall, coming nearly to his height, her build lean and strong from years of forge work. "Yes," she said. "My name is Xander Kaine," he said. "I am a mason. I stood behind you yesterday at the counting house." Her expression shuddered. "I do not need charity. This is not charity. Your father's debt was paid in full 20 months ago. Finch has been stealing from you." She stared at him. "That is not possible. I have seen the records." Public filings at the magistrate's office. He held out the paper with the information he had copied. She took it slowly, her hands steady now. She read in silence, her lips moving slightly as she worked through the numbers. When she looked up, her face had gone very still. "My father told me the debt was nearly settled," she said quietly. "Before he died, he said not to worry, that he had handled it. I thought he meant he had paid most of it. When Finch said I still owed, I believed him. I cannot read ledgers well. My father always handled the accounts." Xander felt a cold fury settle in his chest, the kind that did not shout but built stone by stone. Finch counted on that. "Why are you telling me this?" She looked at him directly, searchingly. "You do not know me." He did not have an answer that made sense, even to himself. He had watched her hands tremble counting out silver, and something in him had refused to let it pass. "Because it is wrong," he said finally. She studied him a moment longer, then stepped back. "Come in." The cottage was small and neat, everything in its place. A table, 2 chairs, a hearth with a pot hanging over banked coals. She gestured for him to sit. "My name is Vera Eriksen," she said. "You knew my father only by reputation. He did good work. The best." Her voice softened. "He loved that forge. When it burned, I thought it would break him. But he rebuilt. He paid for it too. I remember him coming home the month before he died, saying it was finished. The debt was cleared. He seemed so relieved. He did clear it. And Finch buried the proof." Vera's hands curled into fists on the table. "What do I do? You confront him with witnesses, and you demand repayment. He will deny it. He will try. But the magistrate's records do not lie. If Finch filed the payoff with the magistrate but continued to collect from you, that is fraud. That is a crime." She sat back, her expression uncertain. "I do not want trouble." "He is the one who made trouble. You are simply ending it." Vera looked toward the window, where the morning sun illuminated the cold chimney of her father's forge. "I have been using what little I earn doing repair work to pay him. I thought if I kept at it, I could reopen the forge in another year, but it never seemed to get closer. Because he was robbing you every month." She turned back to him, and he saw the anger rising now, displacing the uncertainty. "Then yes, let us confront him." They went that afternoon, not alone. Xander brought Peter the clerk, who brought the ledger. Vera brought old Samuel from the mill, who had known her father well and who carried weight in the community simply by being ancient and cantankerous. The 4 of them walked into Marcus Finch's counting house like a storm. Finch looked up from his desk, and his expression went from welcoming to wary in an instant. "Miss Eriksen, Kaine, gentlemen, how may I help you? You can start by explaining this." Peter set the magistrate's ledger on the desk, opened to the page showing Tormund Eriksen's loan marked paid in full. Finch's face went pale, then flushed. "There must be some mistake." "The only mistake," Xander said, his voice flat and hard, "was thinking no one would check." "I do not know what you are implying." Vera leaned forward, her hands on the desk. "You have taken 480 silver from me over 2 years for a debt my father already paid. That is theft. Now, Miss Eriksen, there are fees, interest. Show me your books," Peter said. "Right now." Finch's mouth worked silently, sweat beaded on his forehead. "This is highly irregular." "So is fraud," Samuel growled. "Books. Now." Finch pulled a ledger from beneath his desk with shaking hands. Peter opened it, scanned the entries, then turned it so everyone could see. There, in Finch's own handwriting, Xander Eriksen, 200 silver, paid in installments, final payment received and loan satisfied, dated 20 months prior. And below it, in different ink, remainder transferred to estate of T. Eriksen, payee V. Eriksen, balance 180 silver. "You forged a new loan," Peter said, his voice tight with anger. "After he paid you in full, you created a false balance and transferred it to his daughter." She signed. "I signed nothing," Vera said. "You told me I owed, I believed you." Finch stood abruptly, his chair scraping back. "This is a misunderstanding. I will of course make adjustments, you will make restitution," Peter said, "and you will answer to the magistrate." The room seemed to contract around Finch. He looked from face to face, finding no mercy. Finally, he sank back into his chair. "How much?" he whispered. 480 silver, Xander said. "Every coin she paid on a debt that did not exist, plus fees, interest, and damages to be determined by the magistrate." "I do not have that much." "Then sell your house," Samuel snapped. "Sell this building. You will pay her back, or you will go to prison for fraud. Choose." They left Finch sitting at his desk, a broken man contemplating ruin. Peter took the ledgers to the magistrate. Xander walked Vera home. They did not speak until they reached the cottage. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Vera stopped at her door and turned to face him. "Thank you," she said. "I do not know why you helped me, but thank you." Xander looked at her, at the way the fading light caught in her dark hair, at the strength and weariness in her face, and felt something shift inside his chest. He had built walls his whole life, stone by stone, keeping the world at a careful distance. But standing here now, he felt those walls crack. "You are welcome," he managed. She smiled, small and hesitant. "Would you like to come in for supper? It is the least I can offer." He should have said no. He was not a man who socialized, who made friends easily. He kept to his work and his solitude. But he nodded instead. The supper was simple. Bread, cheese, stew made from root vegetables. They ate mostly in silence, the kind that felt companionable rather than awkward. Afterward, Vera poured tea and they sat by the fire. "My father taught me the forge work," she said quietly. "From the time I could hold tongs, he said I had the best touch for tempering he had ever seen. When he died, I thought I could keep it going. But without money to buy stock, to repair the equipment, to pay for coal, the forge just sat there. And every month I gave Finch what I could, thinking I was honoring my father's debt." She looked up at Xander. "I should have questioned it. I should have checked." "He counted on you trusting him," Xander said. "That is not your failing, it is his. Still, I feel foolish." "You are not foolish. You are honest. That is different." She studied him over the rim of her cup. "You do not talk much, do you?" "No, I like that. Too many people fill silence with useless words." He found himself almost smiling. "Agreed." Over the following weeks, the magistrate's inquiry moved forward. Finch tried to argue that there had been a genuine misunderstanding, that his records were confused, but the evidence was damning. Peter had found 3 other cases where payments continued after loans were satisfied. All borrowers who could not read well or who were too intimidated to question the lender's authority. The magistrate ruled swiftly. Full restitution to all victims, plus a fine equal to the stolen amounts and a permanent ban from operating as a lender. Finch sold his counting house and his fine home on the hill. The money was distributed to those he had wronged. Vera received 480 silver, a fortune to someone who had been scraping by on small repair jobs. She came to find Xander at the building site where he was setting foundation stones for a new granary. He looked up to see her standing at the edge of the site, and his heart did something complicated in his chest. "Walk with me," she asked. They walked to the forge. She unlocked the chains and pushed open the doors. Inside, dust lay thick on every surface, but the bones of the operation were sound. The hearth, the anvil, the racks of tools. "I am going to reopen it," Vera said. "With the money Finch returned, I can buy stock, repair the bellows, pay for coal. I can make this work again." She turned to him. "But I need help. The stonework around the hearth is cracked. The chimney needs repointing. I cannot afford to hire a mason at full rates." "I will do it," Xander said immediately. "I will pay you what I can. I will do it," he repeated. "Not for payment, because I want to." She looked at him for a long moment, something unreadable in her expression. Why? He could not say it. The words caught behind the wall he had built around feelings he barely understood. So he said instead, "Your father did good work. The forge should be alive again." It was not the whole truth, but it was truth enough for now. He began work the next day. The chimney was in worse shape than he had expected, several stones loose and the mortar crumbling. He dismantled the top section and rebuilt it, setting each stone with care. Vera worked beside him when she could, and when she could not, she was inside the forge, cleaning and repairing and preparing. They fell into a rhythm. He would arrive at dawn and work until the sun climbed high, then break for the lunch she brought out. Bread and cheese, cold meat, apples from the tree behind her cottage. They ate sitting on the stone wall that bordered the property, looking out over the valley where Millbrook nestled in its crook of the river. "Tell me about your work," she said one afternoon. So he did, haltingly at first, then with more ease. He told her about learning the trade from his father, about the satisfaction of setting stones so perfectly that no mortar was needed to hold them, only their own weight and placement. He told her about the granary he was building, the bridge he had helped repair 2 summers ago, the house he hoped to build for himself one day. "You love it," she said. "Yes. I understand that. I love the forge the same way. The heat, the hammer, the way metal yields if you know how to ask." He glanced at her. "Not force it." "Oh, you force it a little, but mostly you listen. The metal tells you when it is ready." She smiled. "My father used to say good forge work is a conversation. Good stonework, too." They sat in companionable quiet, the sun warm on their faces. Xander felt something he had not felt in years: contentment. The work took 3 weeks. When he set the final stone in the chimney and climbed down, Vera was waiting with a smile that made his chest ache. "Perfect," she said, inspecting his work. "Better than it was before the fire." "It will last," he said. She looked at him, and he saw something shift in her expression, a softness that had not been there before. "Stay for supper." It became a pattern. He finished the stonework, but he found other things that needed attention. The door frame was loose. The roof had a leak. The stone path to the forge was uneven. He fixed them all. And every evening he stayed for supper. They talked more easily now. She told him about growing up half-orc in a human town, about the children who had called her names and the adults who had refused her father's services, until they needed something only he could make. She told him about her mother, a human woman who had died when Vera was small, leaving her father to raise her alone. He never remarried, Vera said. He said he had loved once and that was enough for any lifetime. Xander thought about that later, walking home under the stars. Loved once and that was enough. What would it be like to love that deeply? He was beginning to understand. The forge reopened on a cool morning in early autumn. Vera had spread word through the valley, and farmers came with tools to be sharpened. A merchant came with a broken wagon wheel. The blacksmith from the next town over came to buy stock, because Vera had negotiated better rates from the ironmonger. By midday, the forge was roaring, and Vera was in her element, hammer ringing against anvil, her face flushed with heat and joy. Xander stood to the side, watching. He should have been at his own worksite, but he could not bring himself to leave. Not yet. She looked up between customers and caught his eye. Her smile was radiant when the last customer left and the forge fire was banked. She came out to where he stood. Soot smudged her cheek and her braid had come half undone. She looked exhausted and happy. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." "You did the work," he said. "Not alone." She reached out, hesitated, then took his hand. Her palm was calloused and warm. "Xander, I need to say something," his heart hammered. "All right. These weeks working with you, eating with you, talking with you. I have been happier than I have been since my father died, maybe happier than I have ever been." She took a breath. "I know you are a private man. I know you do not. You do not speak your feelings easily, but I need to know if this is only kindness or if it is something more." He looked at their joined hands, at the contrast of her green skin against his tanned fingers. He thought about the walls he had built, the careful distance he kept. And he thought about how easily she had walked through those walls without even trying, simply by being herself. "It is more," he said, his voice rough. "I do not have pretty words, but when I saw you at the counting house, something in me knew, and every day since, that knowing has only grown stronger. He stopped, swallowed. "I care for you, Vera, more than I know how to say." Her eyes shone. "That is enough. More than enough." She kissed him then, gentle and tentative, and he kissed her back with all the feeling he could not put into words. When they broke apart, she was smiling and he was smiling, and the world felt entirely different, like a door had opened onto a room he had not known existed. "Stay," she said. "Not just for supper, stay. I have my room above the stoneworks, I know, but this cottage is too big for one person. And I think I would like to wake up beside you." He thought about his small, spare room, his solitary life. He thought about this woman, strong and honest and beautiful, asking him to share her space, her life. "Yes," he said. "Yes." They married in the spring. A simple ceremony with Samuel the miller officiating and half the town in attendance. People who had once muttered about orcs and humans mixing held their peace when they saw the way Xander and Vera looked at each other, the quiet certainty between them. They held the celebration at the forge, tables set up in the yard, food and drink flowing freely. Peter the clerk gave a toast about justice and second chances. Old Samuel gave a toast about stubborn masons and stubbornly honest orc women being a good match. Vera laughed until she cried, and Xander held her hand through it all, marveling that this was his life now. That night, alone in the cottage that was now theirs, Vera leaned against him and said, "My father would have liked you. I hope so." "No, truly. He always said to judge a man by his actions, not his words. You are a man of action." Xander kissed the top of her head. "I am a man who found his match, sweet talker," she teased, but her voice was warm. They built a life together. Xander moved his masonry tools to the forge property and built a small workshop beside the forge itself. He took contracts in the area, never traveling far, always coming home to Vera by evening. She ran the forge with skill and pride, her reputation growing as word spread about the quality of her work. 2 years into their marriage, Vera began to feel unwell in the mornings. She said nothing at first, not wanting to hope, but when the signs became undeniable, she told Xander one evening over supper. He stared at her, then stood so abruptly his chair fell backward. "Truly, truly." He picked her up and spun her around, laughing, and she laughed too, dizzy and delighted. When he set her down, his eyes were bright. "A child," he said, wonder in his voice. "Our child." The pregnancy was not easy. Vera grew tired quickly and had to bank the forge fires earlier each day. Xander took on less work so he could be near, helping with tasks that grew harder for her, worrying when she winced or pressed a hand to her back. But she bore it all with good humor, and when the midwife finally placed a squalling baby boy in her arms, Vera wept with relief and joy. They named him Wyatt, after Xander's grandfather. He had a dusting of dark hair and green-tinged skin, his father's gray eyes and his mother's pointed ears. He was perfect. Xander held his son and felt the last of his old walls crumble. He had spent so much of his life alone, content with his work and his solitude, never imagining anything more. And now he had this. A wife he loved beyond measure, a son who depended on him, a life full of meaning and connection. "Are you happy?" Vera asked, watching him with their baby. "More than I knew was possible," he said. The years unfolded gently. Wyatt grew into a curious, sturdy boy who loved both forge and stone, trailing after his parents as they worked. When he was 5, Vera gave birth to a second son, whom they named Peter after the clerk who had helped bring Finch to justice. Peter was quieter than his brother, thoughtful and careful, preferring to watch before trying. The forge prospered. Vera hired an apprentice, a young orc woman from the next valley who had been turned away by human smiths. She taught the girl everything Tormund had taught her, passing on the knowledge and the craft. Xander built an addition to the cottage, more rooms for their growing family, and the work satisfied him as all good work did. One evening, when Wyatt was 7 and Peter was 2, Xander came home to find Vera sitting on the stone wall, looking out over the valley. The forge fires were banked, the day's work done. He sat beside her. "Tired?" he asked, a little, content mostly. She leaned against him. "I was thinking about my father, wishing he could see all this. The forge alive again, his grandchildren, you, he would be proud of you. I hope so." She was quiet a moment. "Do you remember the day you came to my door, with the records from the magistrate? Of course. Why did you do it? You still have never really told me." He thought about it, searching for words that had never come easily. "I saw you counting out silver and you looked defeated," he said finally. "And something in me could not bear it. I did not know you, but I knew that look. I knew unfairness when I saw it, so I checked. And once I knew, I had to act." He turned to face her. "I did not know then that I would love you. I just knew I had to help." She smiled, her eyes soft. "And now I cannot imagine my life without you, without this." He gestured at the cottage, the forge, the valley spreading below them. "You gave me a home, Vera, not just a place, a home." She kissed him, slow and sweet. "You gave me the same." They sat together as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Inside the cottage, the boys played, their laughter drifting through the open window. The forge stood solid and ready for tomorrow's work, its chimney strong, its fires waiting to be kindled. And two people who had found each other by chance and stayed together by choice watched the world turn beautiful around them, grateful for every moment of the life they had built stone by stone, strike by strike together.